Oh, actually, she does say here, in April 4th to October 12th, 1959, and out April 12th, 1960. I don't know what that means. What were you talking about, Grandma? I was deep cleaning and I found my grandmother's super old recipe book before we had the internet and we could just Google whatever recipe we wanted. You had to handwrite them down. And there's a recipe I came across that my dad has talked about, said it's one of his favorites. My dad's kind of weird, but you know. It sounds way too simple to be any good, but it does say that it's good for the common cold. And it's cheese and onions and milk. And literally the only ingredients are cheese, onions, and milk, except for salt and pepper. I'm gonna make it just as written, but I can't help but think of ways to doctor it up and make it taste a little bit better. So I'm gonna do a second version my way. We'll compare them side by side and see how they turn out. Let's see if Grandma's recipes are any good. Step 1, slice the onions. Here's a quick tip for when you're cutting up onions. First, cut the end off and then cut right through the center of the root. Then you can easily peel off the outside. I'm using a tip that I got from Rachel Ray eons ago, the GB, the garbage bowl, to catch all the scraps.
We have garbage bowls for everybody today.
That's another little handy tip for you. And when you cut an onion, it looks prettier rather than just slicing in half moons to come in at an angle from the side, going all the way down into the root. It makes the slices more consistent and better visually. And then just cut off the root end, and then you have beautifully sliced little onions. All right, so the recipe just calls for 3 large onions, peeled and sliced. I'm wondering if Grandma meant like half moons in rings, so I'm doing them in my fancier culinary way. Also, even the size of vegetables differed back then. So she had large onions. For all I know, this could have been a large onion back in the 50s, but this kind of seems more medium-ish to me today, so I'm using 4. Oh, and here's a tip so that you don't cry when you're cutting onions. It really does work. All done. Step 2, parboil the onions. I seasoned some boiling water and I'm gonna dump the onions in and let them boil for just a couple of minutes and then strain them. I'm wondering if parboiling was also part of the directions because it does take a little bit of the bite out of the onions. So maybe that will make it a little bit more mellow in flavor. Not quite so oniony in your face. It calls for a cup of warm milk, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that started, and then I'll grate the cheese and start layering the onions and cheese. I'm just doing this over a really low heat so that the milk doesn't scald. I think warm to the touch should work well, or slightly warmer than that. The original version of the recipe calls for a half a pound of cheddar cheese. I think an aged cheddar is probably gonna add some more flavor than just a mild cheddar. In my version, I'm also going to add some comp cheese that I have because I think that the flavor and its melting properties will make the recipe really great. Nowadays, we're used to having measurements done in like cups rather than in weight. So I have my scale over here just to make sure that I'm doing Grandma's recipe justice. Not that I was precise with the 3 onions. That can't be right because 8 ounces is a half a pound and this is only 2.7. So is that right that it would be like double, like more than double? Weight and volume is where recipes can get a little muddled. Okay, well, I'm just gonna grate all of this then. I think that this addition of the comp cheese that I got at Cafe Brage is going to make this even more delicious. Even more delicious. Do we know that it's gonna be delicious at all? No, not yet, not yet, but we'll see. All right, so I've got my parboiled onions, the cheese is grated, and I've got Grandma's version that I'm doing over here, and then my version on this side. Hers just calls for layering the onions and the cheese with salt and pepper, and then topping it with milk. And with mine, in between the layers, I'm also gonna add a little bit of grated nutmeg and some thyme leaves. So I'm gonna try and get this as even as possible. The onions actually are super strong, even for parboiling them, so. It says that this is a cure for, salt and pepper first, for the common cold. Have you ever heard of that? Because I looked it up and it is actually a thing. I would have thought that dairy might have not been good for colds, but apparently cheese and onions and milk or onions are, it's a good cold remedy. I guess because it's part of the garlic family. Garlic's good, I know. Okay. So just cheddar cheese is going in Grandma's. I mix the cheddar cheese with a little of that Comte, so a little bit of that. Do another layer. I'm gonna try and go for 3 layers in each. I'm just gonna press it down a little in the pan because at the end it says just to cover, like, what is the exact words that she uses? Pour in sufficient warm milk to cover. And I'm actually gonna pour in the milk before I put on that last little layer of cheese because I think that'll help the cheese maybe brown a little bit better. I forgot to layer the thyme and nutmeg, so let me go ahead and just put that on the top and we'll go from there. Okay, I guess I'm glad I caught that before it actually went in the oven. Thyme smells really good. I don't remember my grandma cooking all that often because by the time I was older, I'm sure she was past that period of her life where she was cooking all the time. I'm sure that as a busy mom, she was always looking for meals that were easy to do, and a lot of the recipes that I've seen call for different, you know, like a can of this or very few ingredients. So I'm gonna work my way through. Some of them have kind of funny names as well, like the Captain's Casserole. I'm going to top Grandma's with the rest of the cheese, and then that will be ready to go in the oven as is. And then I'm gonna top mine with the rest of the cheese, but then I'm gonna add a panko crust, just panko and butter and a little bit of grated Parmesan, just to give it some texture and crunch. Okay, so I just melted a little bit of butter and I'll sprinkle in some panko breadcrumbs and give that a stir just so the breadcrumbs are coated. Then add a little bit of grated Parmesan cheese into there. So now we've got 3 cheese, onions, and milk. 3 is better than 1. I don't know, we'll see. And now we have a crunchy topping for the souped up 2026 version. So at my grandparents' house, they had one of they lived in the same apartment since my dad was in high school until they both passed. So they were there for, gosh, like probably almost 50 years. And it was in Santa Monica, and there's like a little mail slot in the side of the house. And you would just like, the mailman would open up the slot and the mail would just drop down, and then you opened it up from the inside of your house. And I had so much fun playing with that when I was little. And I don't know why I'm making this, just made me think of that memory. But all right, let's put these in the oven and see. 375 for, it says an hour and 25 minutes, but that's if the onions are not parboiled. So it'll be a little faster than that, I think. I know my dad is gonna watch this video and give me a hard time about not having him over while we were filming it, but don't worry, Dad, I'm gonna pack you up some leftovers and you can try both. It smells a lot better than it did when I first dumped the onions, and it looks really good too. So let's see. Well, I have to say it looks and smells better than I expected, and I don't know which one's going to taste better, so we'll give it a shot. I am really looking forward to seeing how Grandma's tastes, so we'll start with that one. Still a little liquidy in the bottom of the pan, so maybe it could have cooked for even longer, but I did part cook the onions, so. She said to serve it with a salad, so I had some arugula, and that's what I'm pairing it with. So let's try it. It does look nourishing, and if you're gonna take the time to cook, you may as well get the benefit of nourishment. Definitely better than expected. I could totally see how if you have a cold, eating this is like, it's kind of like a mix between soup and food because the onions are nice and soft, easy to eat. The flavor tastes like you have a big old pot of soup in front of you. And just that nourishing, rich, cooked on the stove all day taste. It's good. Okay, I'm gonna try mine now. I decided to put it with crusty bread. I think that might be a nice way to deliver the goods. And because it's 2026, I'm gonna top it with some microgreens. So here it goes. All right, my version does not have liquid on the bottom. That could have been the chef, and I put more milk in this one. This pan has slightly more surface area, but so far, based on the bottom of the pan, look, I like the way mine turned out. All right, I'm gonna scoop this onto the bread and deliver it that way. All right, Grandma, I'm sorry, but I think we can add a few ingredients to your recipe. This one really does taste like you've got a pot of chicken soup right in front of you, kind of like when you get to the bottom of the bowl and the broth is gone and all that's left is that kind of cooked vegetable mush. I know the word mush isn't very appealing with this, but it's actually really, really tasty. So I can't wait to hear what my dad is going to think of both, if he will prefer the taste of his childhood or something a little updated.
Very nice. This seems like the more traditional one, but there's no potato. Okay. Other than breadcrumbs on top, I don't know if I would know what the difference is.
I hope that you enjoyed this recipe from my grandmother's recipe book to yours. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to cook with you again very soon. Bye.